My name is John, and my life has always been predictably ordinary. I woke up, went to work, and returned to my small, dimly lit apartment. But on that fateful night, everything changed. It started with the weather, ominous and heavy, with a thick blanket of clouds concealing the moon and stars. Raindrops tapped rhythmically on my window, a tune of loneliness. Restlessness gnawed at me like a persistent itch. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. My thoughts were a chaotic jumble, and the walls of my apartment seemed to close in on me. With each tick of the clock, my unease grew stronger, urging me to escape and find solace in the darkness outside. So, I decided to go for a drive, a late-night journey to nowhere in particular. I craved the isolation of a deserted road, where the world could fade away and my mind could finally breathe. With a heavy heart, I grabbed my car keys, stepped out into the rain-soaked night, and unlocked my old, reliable sedan. As I slid into the driver's seat, the rain battered the car's roof like a frenzied drummer. The engine roared to life, and I began to navigate through the slick, winding roads that crisscrossed the countryside. The darkness outside enveloped me, and the headlights carved a narrow path through the obsidian night. The world beyond the windshield was eerie, a shadowy realm where every tree branch seemed like a twisted claw, and every rustle of leaves became a whispering secret. The only sounds were the rain and the tires on the wet asphalt, a haunting symphony of solitude. My grip on the steering wheel tightened, and I tried to push away the growing unease. The desolation was unsettling, but it was exactly what I had sought. No one knew where I was or why I had left my apartment in the dead of night. I was truly alone. Little did I know that this drive would lead me to a nightmarish journey I could never have imagined. The rain continued to pour, washing away the world I knew and propelling me further into the unknown. The road stretched out endlessly before me, a sinuous ribbon of cracked asphalt disappearing into the obscurity of the night. My car's headlights cut through the darkness, revealing fleeting glimpses of the dense woods that lined the roadside. The trees seemed to lean in, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers, eager to claw at anyone who dared to pass. I had never been on this road before, and it felt like a journey into the unknown. The isolation was palpable, a heavy shroud that pressed against my chest, making each breath feel like a struggle. The only companions I had were the relentless raindrops, which continued their relentless assault on my car. The windshield wipers moved back and forth with a monotonous rhythm, and their soft, rhythmic swishing only added to the sense of isolation. I glanced at the dashboard clock. It was well past midnight, and there was no sign of civilization in sight. No other cars, no distant glimmers of light, just me and the road. As I continued to drive, strange noises began to emerge from the darkness. At first, they were subtle, like distant whispers carried on the wind, but they grew louder and more distinct, like the murmurings of a ghostly congregation. Goosebumps prickled on my arms as I strained to listen, but I couldn't make out any words, just the haunting sound of voices carried on the night breeze. My unease deepened, and I tried to dismiss the sounds as mere products of my overactive imagination. But as the minutes stretched on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong with this desolate road. I turned up the volume on the car's radio, hoping to drown out the eeriest sounds with music, but even the upbeat tunes couldn't dispel the growing sense of dread. It was as if the road itself was alive, whispering secrets and harboring malevolent intentions. The rain outside showed no signs of letting up, and my visibility was limited to the narrow beam of light cast by my headlights. Shadows danced at the edge of my vision, playing tricks on my already frazzled nerves. Every bend in the road seemed to reveal more darkness and uncertainty. I knew I should turn back and find my way to the safety of familiar streets, but something held me in its thrall. It was as though an invisible force was compelling me to continue down this desolate path, deeper into the heart of the unknown. Little did I know that the true horrors of this road were yet to reveal themselves, lurking just around the next bend. As I continued down that eerie, rain-soaked road, my unease grew with each passing mile. The strange noises and unsettling shadows that had haunted me earlier were now joined by a creeping sense of foreboding. It was as if the very air around me had thickened, bearing down on my shoulders like a heavy cloak. Then, just as I rounded a particularly sharp curve, I saw him, a figure standing by the side of the road, barely visible in the dim glow of my headlights. My heart lurched, and I instinctively hit the brakes, bringing my car to a sudden stop. What was someone doing out here, in the middle of nowhere, on a night like this? The man, or at least what appeared to be a man, was shrouded in darkness. His clothes were soaked through, clinging to his slender frame. His face, barely visible under the hood of his rain-soaked jacket, was obscured in shadow. I couldn't see his features, but I could feel his gaze fixated on me, an unyielding stare that sent a chill down my spine. Against my better judgment, I rolled down the passenger side window just a crack and called out, "Hey, do you need a ride?" The stranger didn't respond immediately, but after what felt like an eternity, he nodded silently and opened the car door. The rain poured in as he climbed inside, his presence casting an eerie pall over the interior of my car. I couldn't help but steal glances at him as I resumed driving. His face remained hidden, concealed by the hood of his jacket, and he sat unnaturally still, like a statue. The only sound was the relentless drumming of rain on the roof. I cleared my throat, my voice trembling as I asked, "So, where are you headed?" Still, the stranger said nothing. He continued to stare straight ahead, his posture rigid. Panic swirled within me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had made a terrible mistake by offering this enigmatic hitchhiker a ride. Desperate to break the oppressive silence, I tried to engage in small talk. "I'm John," I offered, my voice wavering. "It's a pretty miserable night, huh?" Finally, the hitchhiker spoke, his voice a low, haunting whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "Miserable indeed, John," he said, his words carrying an unsettling weight. "But sometimes misery is the only path to enlightenment." His cryptic response hung in the air like a dark omen, and I couldn't fathom what he meant. I stole another glance at him, and this time, his pale, gaunt face was partially illuminated by the passing streetlights. His eyes were empty, devoid of any emotion, and they seemed to bore into my soul. My heart raced, and a dreadful realization washed over me. I had invited a stranger into my car on this desolate road, and I had no idea who or what I was dealing with. The hitchhiker's intentions were becoming increasingly unclear, and I couldn't help but wonder if I had just made a grave mistake that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The eerie silence hung heavy in the car, broken only by the relentless patter of rain on the roof. I couldn't tear my gaze away from the enigmatic hitchhiker, whose chilling words still echoed in my mind. There was an inexplicable aura of malevolence that clung to him, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in the presence of something otherworldly. Summoning every ounce of courage, I tried to maintain a conversation with this unsettling stranger. "Enlightenment," I stammered, my voice wavering. "What do you mean by that?" The hitchhiker's lips curled into a faint, disturbing smile. "Life's darkest moments often reveal the truth, John," he replied cryptically. "And in the darkest corners of your soul, you'll find the answers you seek." His words sent a chill down my spine, and I couldn't help but wonder if this was some kind of elaborate prank or if he was simply a madman. I wished I had never offered him a ride, but turning back now seemed even more perilous. As I continued to drive, the hitchhiker's unsettling presence seemed to grow more potent. He began to speak in riddles, hinting at knowledge about my life that he couldn't possibly possess. He recounted personal details and secrets, things that no stranger should know, leaving me in a state of disbelief and terror. "How do you know these things?" I demanded, my voice quivering with fear. He chuckled softly, the sound sending a shiver down my spine. "I know because I've seen the shadows that follow you, John. I've watched your every move, waiting for this very moment." My mind raced with questions, but the hitchhiker's cryptic responses only deepened the sense of dread that had settled over me. It was as if he had known I would come here tonight, that this encounter had been preordained. Suddenly, the car's interior grew colder, the windows fogging up as if a ghostly presence had entered. The hitchhiker's voice took on an otherworldly quality as he leaned closer, his breath icy against my ear. "You can't escape your past, John," he whispered, "and tonight you'll confront the consequences of your actions." His words sent a shockwave of terror through me. I knew then that this was no ordinary hitchhiker, but something far more sinister. I had walked into a nightmare, and there was no turning back. The road stretched endlessly before us, leading deeper into the heart of darkness, and I couldn't help but wonder if I would ever make it out alive. The unsettling conversation with the hitchhiker left me paralyzed with fear. Every word he spoke seemed to weave a web of dread around me, and his cryptic warnings weighed heavily on my mind. I desperately wanted to escape this nightmare, but the deserted road stretched on, offering no respite. As the rain continued to pour down, I glanced at the hitchhiker, whose eerie smile remained fixed. He seemed to relish my discomfort, and it became clear that his presence was anything but ordinary, but the worst was yet to come. With a sudden and unnatural swiftness, the hitchhiker simply vanished from the passenger seat. One moment, he was there, his ghostly eyes locked onto mine, and the next he was gone, leaving only a wet imprint on the seat and an icy chill in the air. I swerved in shock, nearly losing control of the car as I scanned the interior, my heart pounding in my chest. There was no trace of the hitchhiker, no sign that he had ever been there. My mind raced and I struggled to make sense of the inexplicable. It was as if he had dissolved into thin air. In my confusion, I glanced into the rearview mirror, and to my horror, I saw the hitchhiker standing in the middle of the road, a spectral figure bathed in the glow of my taillights. His eyes bore into mine with an intensity that froze my blood. I slammed on the brakes, bringing the car to a screeching halt. My heart raced as I watched him in disbelief. He was standing in the middle of the rain-soaked road, his clothes clinging to his emaciated frame, his face a mask of unrelenting malice. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as we locked eyes across the dark expanse of road. And then, as if mocking the laws of reality, he slowly faded away, dissolving into the night like a wisp of smoke. The road ahead was empty once more, as if he had never been there. I was left trembling, my mind a whirlwind of fear and confusion. It was impossible, utterly impossible. What had just occurred defied all rational explanation. Had I imagined the hitchhiker, or had I encountered a malevolent spirit, a vengeful ghost from the depths of the unknown? As I sat there, my car idling in the middle of that desolate road, I knew that I had entered a realm of terror beyond my comprehension. The supernatural forces at play were beyond my control, and the night held more horrors than I could have ever imagined. With a shudder, I realized that my only option was to try to restart the car and escape this nightmarish ordeal before it consumed me completely. The memory of the hitchhiker's unnerving vanishing act haunted my thoughts as I tried to restart the car. My trembling fingers fumbled with the key in the ignition, and for a moment, it seemed as though the engine would never roar to life again. But with a cough and a sputter, the car's heart began to beat once more. I wasted no time in slamming my foot down on the gas pedal, determined to put as much distance between myself and that dreadful spot on the road as possible. The rain continued to pound down, blurring the world outside into a watery, indistinct nightmare. The car sped along the winding road, but my relief was short-lived. As I drove, the shadows on the side of the road seemed to come to life. Figures, indistinct and grotesque, darted in and out of the periphery of my vision. They appeared for a fleeting moment, only to vanish when I turned my gaze towards them. It was as if the road itself was teeming with malevolent spirits, eager to torment me. Whispers filled the car, a cacophony of sinister voices that sent shivers down my spine. They spoke in a language I couldn't understand. Their words were like shards of ice in my ears. My heart raced as I desperately tried to drown out the haunting sounds with the blaring of the car's radio. But the voices persisted, growing louder and more insistent. My hands clenched the steering wheel, my knuckles white with fear. My eyes darted from side to side, searching for any sign of the apparitions that seemed to haunt this forsaken road. But each time I thought I glimpsed something in the darkness, it would vanish, leaving only a suffocating sense of dread in its wake. Then, as if in response to my mounting terror, the road itself seemed to shift. It twisted and turned in unnatural ways, leading me deeper into the heart of darkness. The car's headlights revealed grotesque shapes in the trees, their forms shifting and contorting with each passing moment. I couldn't tell if I was still driving, or if I had become trapped in some nightmarish maze. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the voices in the pounding rain. I had entered a realm of pure terror, where the boundaries of reality blurred and the supernatural held sway. With every passing moment, I felt as though the very fabric of my sanity was unraveling. The road ahead seemed endless, and I couldn't escape the feeling that I was being watched, that malevolent eyes were fixed upon me, and that something unspeakable awaited me just beyond the next turn. The night had become a living nightmare, and I was trapped within its relentless grip. As I continued to go down the nightmare road, each detour bringing me closer to the abyss, my heart beat in my chest. I couldn't escape the impression that I was on the verge of insanity, due to the constant presence of ugly figures in the shadows and eerie whispering. My thoughts raced as I struggled to keep the automobile under control, urgently trying to figure out how to get out of this waking nightmare. But it seemed as though the road itself was working against me to ensnare me even more deeply in its sinister grasp. Then, just as I was about to lose it, a startling flash of understanding appeared, piercing the oppressive anxiety. "You can't escape your past," the hitchhiker had said, and I remembered that. It hit me like a lightning bolt. All of these things, this road, these ghostly figures, the eerie voices, were manifestations of my own guilt and punishment for past transgressions. The memories returned with a torrent of regret. I've made decisions in my life that have harmed other people and left scars that will never fully mend. I had injured individuals, abused their confidence, and done them wrong. It was as though my own inner demons were being distortedly reflected on this road, and the guilt that had been festering inside of me for so long was coming to the surface. I suddenly realized what I had been denying, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. The highway had changed into a kind of purgatory, where I was compelled to face the results of my deeds. The voices were the echoes of their suffering, and the apparitions were the faces of individuals I had wronged. I stopped the automobile with trembling hands. I was still surrounded by shadows and murmurs, but their influence over me had lessened. I was aware that I had to face my history and the shame that had been following me for a very long time. It was the only way to escape this terrifying cycle. I experienced a weight loss as I got out of the car and into the downpour. As soon as I recognized their suffering, the faces in the shadows started to transform, their features softening. The eerie murmurs became melancholy sighs, as if they were at last being heard. I moved along the lonely road without being terrified or avoiding it. The path wound and turned, taking me through a maze of regrets and memories. However, I had catharsis with each step, letting go of the guilt that had held me back for so long. The rain stopped as I approached the end of the road, and the clouds parted to let the moonlight peek through. Instead of consuming me, the night had made me face my own darkness and seek a way to salvation. Although I knew I couldn't escape my history, the road had served its function, and I could now choose to face it and ask for forgiveness. I turned back to the car with a fresh sense of understanding, prepared to continue traveling without being followed by the ghosts of my remorse. The journey that lay ahead had been a nightmare, but it had also served as a furnace that shaped my course toward atonement and self-forgiveness. The horrors of that night would never leave me. They served as a constant reminder of the darkness that resides within each of us. But they had also taught me how to face and conquer that darkness. I stepped back into my car with the weight of my shame finally addressed and a fresh sense of understanding. Shadows and murmurs had been replaced by an uneasy quiet that seemed to envelop the night. As soon as I turned the key, the engine roared to life, and I was able to proceed down the road without any further interference from the wicked entities that had tormented me. The long, curving road in front of me no longer seemed to be leading into the night. Instead, it was a route toward introspection, a trek through the maze of my past transgressions. I had some time to reflect on my life, and the choices I had made after the uncanny voices had stopped echoing and left behind a profound silence. I considered the people I had mistreated, the suffering I had brought about, and the scars I had left behind as I was driving. I had carried the weight of my guilt for far too long, and now I was resolved to make amends, ask for forgiveness, and find redemption. The night had been a terrifying experience that had taken me to the depths of my psyche, but it had also been a crucible, a trial by fire that had hardened my resolve to face my past and alter the direction of my life. The paranormal activities that had taken place were a reflection of my own inner demons, and by confronting them, I had discovered a way to overcome them. The first gleam of light that indicated the end of the night's horrors appeared as I continued down the road. It was the first indication of morning. The world appeared to come alive with the sounds of birdsong and the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze now that the rain had stopped. I experienced a sensation of rebirth and a rebirth of my spirit with every mile that I traveled. The journey had brought me close to giving up, but it had also shown the path to recovery. Although I couldn't undo the past, I could decide how my future would be. I saw that the nightmare was finally ending when the first sunbeams peeked through the clouds. I was ready to face the world with a renewed sense of purpose and a determination to atone for my previous actions after coming out of the darkness stronger and wiser. Although the path was uncertain, I was no longer afraid of it. I had faced my demons, and I was determined to no longer let my guilt rule my life. The nightmare was over, but the road to redemption was just getting started, and I was prepared to accept it with an open mind and a revitalized spirit. Hey there, amazing viewers. If you're enjoying the content on this channel and found this video helpful or entertaining, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving this video a thumbs up. Subscribing is a fantastic way to stay updated with our latest videos, and your support through likes helps us reach a wider audience. So, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. We appreciate your support, and it helps us continue creating great content for you. Thanks for being part of our community.